I'll never forget that day. It was one of those moments that stays with you, etched into your memory like a scar. I was at the airport, waiting for my flight home after a long week of work. The terminal was buzzing with the usual chaos, people rushing, kids crying, and the constant hum of announcements over the loudspeaker. But then, something happened that made everything else fade into the background. I noticed him almost immediately. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a crisp military uniform, standing near the gate. He looked calm but serious, his eyes fixed on the casket being carefully unloaded from the plane. It was draped in an American flag, and I felt my chest tighten. A fallen soldier. Someone's son, maybe a father, a brother, a friend. Someone who had given everything. The man in uniform was a fellow soldier, an escort tasked with bringing his fallen comrade home. I could see the weight of it in his posture, the way he held himself with such quiet dignity. He stood there, watching as the casket was placed on a trolley, ready to be moved to the next flight. It was a solemn moment, and even the noisy airport seemed to pause, if only for a second. But then, things took a turn. An airline employee approached him, clipboard in hand, and started talking. At first it seemed routine, but then the soldier's face changed. His jaw tightened and his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I was too far away to hear the conversation, but I could tell something was wrong. The employee was insisting that the soldier needed to pay an extra fee for the casket. Something about excess baggage or weight limits. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This man was escorting a fallen hero, and they were treating it like it was just another piece of luggage. The soldier tried to explain, his voice steady but firm, but the employee wasn't backing down. That's when the other passengers started to notice. A woman near me gasped, and a man muttered, "Are you kidding me?" under his breath. The tension in the air was thick, and I could feel my own anger rising. How could they be so heartless? Then, something incredible happened. A man in a suit, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward. He identified himself as a supervisor and immediately apologized to the soldier. "Sir, there's been a misunderstanding," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "We will take care of everything. Please accept our deepest condolences." The soldier nodded, his expression softening just a little. But the damage had already been done. Word spread quickly, and soon the entire terminal was buzzing with outrage. People were pulling out their phones, recording the scene, and posting it online. By the time my flight boarded, the story was already going viral. As I sat on the plane, I couldn't stop thinking about that soldier. The way he had stood there, so strong and composed, even in the face of such disrespect. It made me angry, but it also filled me with pride. Because in the end, the airline's mistake didn't just backfire. It reminded all of us what really matters. It reminded us to honor those who sacrifice everything for our freedom. And as we taxied down the runway, I looked out the window and whispered a quiet thank you to that fallen soldier. Wherever they were. Because of them, and because of the man who stood by their side, I'll never forget what true honor looks like. The flight itself was uneventful, but my mind kept drifting back to that moment. I thought about the families who would be waiting at the other end, their hearts heavy with grief, but also filled with pride for their loved one's service. I thought about the soldier who had stood so bravely, ensuring that his comrade made it home with the dignity they deserved. When we landed, I saw the story had exploded online. People were outraged, but there was also an outpouring of support for the soldier and the fallen hero. The airline issued a formal apology, but it was clear that the public's trust had been shaken. More importantly, though, the incident sparked a broader conversation about how we treat our military and their families. In the days that followed, I found myself reflecting on the values we often take for granted: sacrifice, honor, and respect. That soldier, standing tall in the face of adversity, reminded me of the strength and resilience that define our armed forces. And the fallen hero, whose final journey was almost marred by bureaucracy, reminded me of the ultimate price some pay for our freedoms. I don't know what happened to that soldier after he left the airport. I don't know if he made it home safely, or if he's still out there, serving our country. But I do know this. That day, in that crowded terminal, he taught us all a lesson in dignity and respect, and for that, I will always be grateful. So, whenever I see a soldier in uniform, I make it a point to say thank you. It's a small gesture, but it's one that carries a lot of weight, because behind every uniform is a story, a life dedicated to something greater than themselves. And behind every fallen hero is a legacy that deserves to be honored, not just with words, but with actions. That day at the airport will stay with me forever. It was a reminder of the good and the bad, the strength and the fragility of humanity. But most of all, it was a reminder to never take our freedoms, or those who protect them, for granted.